Welcome, everyone, to Manzanita Writers Press Interviews of History, our Gold Country Oral History Project. And we have with us today two lovely people from San Andreas, and I'll be introducing them. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor and our wonderful grantor, and that is Calaveras Community Foundation, which is a wonderful organization that gives funding for worthy projects like ours. And would also like to thank Manzanita Writers Press board and Sarah Lunsford, who's our videographer, for doing this wonderful project with us. So today we have two wonderful people from San Andreas. It's Chris and Phil Castellucio. And they're living in San Andreas now, but they haven't always been here, and they have some stories to tell. So tell us first how you ended up coming up here and where, how that all came about.
Well, it all came about probably in 1999, 1998. I was thumbing through the Turner Family Bible, and all of a sudden out fell this letter, and it was the original love letter that my great-great-grandfather, Henry Rice Mann, who was the pioneer that came in 1849 and settled in Jackson in 1849, he and another man, I can't remember, the guy.
Boarding house.
Hmm?
They created a boarding house.
Yeah, they opened the Astor House, and it's still there in Jackson, on the main street. It's kind of like an apartment now. But anyway, he came, he settled, he became a gold pioneer, mining for gold, realized it wasn't as lucrative as he thought, and it was a lot more hard work. So he and a friend that he was panning gold with, they opened the Astor House, and then when he got enough funds for his wife and children, my great-grandmother being one of the children, she was 9 years old. In fact, I actually have, I have a portion of his journal. He wrote daily. And
Is there a picture?
this picture is of my great-grandparents. This young lady, Adeline Martha, was 9 when she arrived in Jackson with her mother and her brother and aunt and uncle and some cousins. But Henry, he wrote a love letter to their mother, and in 1851, of his undying love for her and the fact that he could send for them to come because he had made enough money for their passage. At the Astor House, they had a little cub bear, and it was kind of like an attraction. Come and see the bear and stay with us and blah, blah, blah. The bear was tied to a tree out front, which the hotel now is at the end of the street. You drive down, but the tree was there in the middle of the street. The bear was tied up. A wild boar that came down the road spooked the bear. Henry went over to calm it down, and because it was a pet. Well, it got so scared, it grabbed him and it squeezed him. And he literally took 2 days, but he died of the crushed lungs and all. And, but the mother of this lady, they were already on the wagon train coming.
Oh.
And then she gets word that her husband is dead in California. They were already to the point of no return. So they continued on to Jackson and arrived as a widow with her 4 children. And the partner that William McKim was the partner with Henry. So he took them under his wing, and she was traveling with her brother, sister-in-law, and niece and nephew. The 2 women started the first Methodist church in Jackson and the first school. So they became involved and very prominent in Jackson. And so then the love letter, and I have the love letter, the original one is now donated. I've donated it to the archives in Jackson. But in 2001, when that letter was 150 years old, we had a big presentation in the museum in Jackson, and I donated that and a lot of Turner artifacts and things. So there's a display there. But every year, that love letter gets put into the newspaper on Valentine's Day. Oh. And it's a special Valentine's Day, and the whole letter is in the newspaper. And the whole undying love for her. And
Can you read a paragraph from that letter that might, from the one that you have?
okay,
That might be,
well, it starts out, to my dear Lucinda, this is Valentine's Day, and in the morning, I feel in good spirits, although my business is awfully dull. The weather is beautiful, not a drop of rain yet. Birds are singing and flowers are springing. How happy should I be? How happy should I be could I see you this morning and present you with a small token of love and affection so appropriate to the season. And so anyway, I had, and it was on like onion paper, that rice paper, and it was getting pretty, you figure it was 150 years old. And so, like I say, we donated it, the originals in the archives. And
it's quite a lengthy letter if you look at it.
It is.
It goes 4 columns across.
Right.
Look at that.
And it ends with affectionately, Henry R.M., Henry Rice Mann. So he was the pioneer. And then on the other side of the spectrum is Jesse Foote Turner. Now, Jesse Foote Turner also came from Michigan, and he became the first elected judge in 1857. And his son eventually married the daughter of the pioneer in 1864 in Jackson. So the 2 of them married. My grandfather was born in Jackson. And as you can see, can we do this?
Yes.
Look at
Look at this genealogy.
That's the genealogy of the Turners.
Isn't it great? And then when you find new information,
It's a cousin that put all this together. But when she finds new information, she cuts, you can feel right there.
Yeah.
She cuts and then adds that and then
tapes it together.
So that it's in.
So she doesn't have to retype everything.
Yeah. So it's in sequence.
That's wonderful.
It literally starts, let's see, Robert Turner, the immigrant and descendants of him. and he was born in 1611. So it goes back that far.
Mm.
And he died in 16. Oh, he either was born in 1611 or 9, depending on what she found out in England.
Oh.
And then went to Boston, Massachusetts.
Mm.
And then the lineage came from that. But anyway, wonderful. Isn't that amazing? This is.
That is. And are you on this?
I'm on here. I'm way down here.
Bill, did you get on there as well?
Well, yes, as
a spouse. So you're near the bottom, are you?
Yeah, we're definitely near the bottom.
Yeah. Oh,
All right.
that's wonderful.
Anyway, we were married in 1963, and then our family, but but anyway, when I found the letter in the Bible, which I've now donated the Bible to the archives too.
It's a traditional family Bible with all the names
all
and
the names and
wonderful.
They're about that thick.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also in the archives. Like I say, my grandfather was born here. So but we lived in the Bay Area, got married in 1963, went to the Philippines with Phil for
Phil from the Philippines.
yeah, Phil from
Phil.
the Philippines.
Yeah, compliments of the United States Air
Not
Force.
Air Force. And we were married on the 19th of January of 1963. He left on the 26th. And then I followed. I went 9,000 miles. Never been on an airplane in my life. I was 19 years old, going to a unknown country. My mother at the airport. All the families were at the airport when I left. They were with him too. He left out of Travis, but I went commercial, and my mother was crying her eyes out, and I thought, "Oh, don't cry, Mom. I'm going on an adventure to meet my husband." Well, did I not know when I had kids and they went off to college, I cried my eyes out. But I arrived in Manila on April the 1st, 1963. So this month it has, 62 years?
January, we had 62
52 years together.
We've been married 62 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the history. Like I say, my grandfather was born in Jackson. So when we settled home, we settled back in the Bay Area, where both of our immediate families were. And I don't know, we would come up to Jackson. My grandfather talked about Jackson before he died. But I was just a kid then. He died in in the 70s, I think it was. No, maybe even before that. Anyway, it's probably on that list. But anyway, to make a long story short, we met Larry Sonato, and he was the archivist in Jackson. And so we did a lot of dealing with him and bringing up artifacts and bringing up pictures. He didn't even have a picture of the judge. I had.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Chris had all the pictures of all the people, and Larry had none. So they all now are sitting in the archive as well.
Yeah.
He made copies
And he
for
made
us.
copies for us.
Good thing.
Yeah.
But I was the only child on the Turner side. After this whole lineage of Turners, my father, I was the only child of my mother and dad. My two aunts of my dad's sisters never had children. So anytime somebody died, guess what? All this artifacts and all this stuff came to me. And it got put, you know, I might as well just leave it down there. It got stuck in a closet under a bed. You know how it is when you're raising a family and you don't have time to even look at it.
Right.
So it was,
It's a valuable treasure, though,
but it was, I knew it was
family
treasure.
history.
Right. And so, like I say, it was probably a couple years before 2001 because the love letter was 150 years old
Mm.
when we donated it back to Jackson.
And did that draw you back up here?
Yes,
So
yes.
you
That-
too, Phil, were you interested in the area? Or?
Well, basically, what she wanted to do is write, family, follow the family. She wanted to write a book on the family. So that's what brought her and one of my cousins up here. And that's how we found the house in San Andreas. But it was just the fact that the family history is what brought her up into this area.
Everything coming back around.
Right, coming back around. And so when he said our cousin Jan, she and I would take off for a couple of days and we explored Sutter Creek and all that area in Jackson. And then one afternoon, we came over this way, came up Gold Strike Road and saw this development and models, their manufactured homes, and went in and talked with Frank Moller, who was the developer at the time. And so I went home and I said to Phil, you won't believe this, but, we can get a second home. So we did. We bought in 2000, put our deposit in 2004, and then the house was delivered in April. April's a good month, huh?
There's a lot of things going on in here.
A lot of things went on in April. And so on April 5th, actually, we moved here as a second home. And then we would come up weekends and, getaways, and the kids would, the kids are now adults with kids of their own. So I'd bring the grandchildren up here and we explored caves and all the history of Jackson and San Andreas and Angels Camp and Murphy's, Calaveras, Big Trees. I mean, you name it, you've got plenty to see and do. And then like Phil said, we decided to move here permanently in 2010. So we've been here 24 years, 25 basically.
What were your impressions when you first moved up? I mean, was it a shock to you coming from?
It was a blessing to us. From the Bay Area, people, we go back down now and say, how did we ever live here? How did we, all of this rushing and running and Dublin, we had settled in Dublin, and we only had one light in town in 1967 when we moved to Dublin. Now it's a metropolis. To get from one end of Dublin to the other, it takes you like 20 minutes because they're stopping and lights and traffic, and we look at each other and say, how did we ever live here? How did we ever live here? This is paradise. This is definitely paradise.
So what are your activities now that the last few 24 years that you came up here? Were you retired then at that point?
Basically, I was always a homemaker and stayed home and raised the children. So a homemaker never retires. But in essence, he had retired. He retired, 96?
Well, I took a buyout in 96 and retired in 97.
Yeah.
And then first of all, we came up, we got connected to our church.
St.
So we
Andrews.
belong to St. Andrews Catholic Church. And so that's our first connection. Anytime you go to church, you have community. So as we ran back and forth for those 5 years, we built that rapport with it. And then we found out St. Andrews had a two satellite churches, one in West Point and one in Moke Hill. But the one in Moke Hill was an 11 o'clock mass. So we call it the senior mass. So we don't have to get up early. Because the morning mass is at 9 o'clock. So we loved it. So we went to Moke Hill and then met those people. Matter of fact, when we got there were two people that greeted you when you came to the front door. And over time, I became the greeter. And then we just, assimilated. And once we felt after 4 or 5 years of being in our church community and the local community, we thought, you know what, this is we want to be permanent. So we came up here permanently in 2010.
And we rented our Dublin house for about a year and a half.
Just in case.
To make sure that we wanted to be settled. Because if you sell it right away and move up here, then you can't buy your own house back. So we rented it. Our daughter-in-law is a CPA, so she knew exactly how long and all the protocol. And then when we decided that this is living in paradise compared to the Bay Area, we sold it.
What were some surprises that you maybe had coming up here? Things that were very different?
I had one because Turner Park has a lot of walking paths. So I would go in and walk, and I worked my way up to almost 5 miles in an hour and 15 minutes. But the park kind of always looked not quite clean, but not quite dirty. But I couldn't find anyone. So finally, I saw a guy cleaning the gazebo. So I stopped and I said, hi, I'm Phil. And he's like, hi, I'm Jim. So I said, I've noticed when I walk the park that it just needs a little more tender care, but it's fine. But it's just, he says, yeah, well, we had a guy that lived here in a trailer. But his family moved to Ione and took his grandkids, so he went with them. So now we're trying to do it with volunteers. So I said, well, I have some stuff going on right now, so give me your name and number, and I'll get back to you. So he says, okay. He said, my name's Jim Kavanaugh. He's part of Park and Rec. I said, you can't be Kavanaugh Liquors in Dublin. He says, yes, I am.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So and the other thing is Turner Park is also, my wife's maiden name is Turner. So I said, well, God wants me to be here. There's two connectors. When you have too many connectors, so I started in 2012 working with Jim and Barbara cleaning the park. And then a few years later, they had a son that had a heart issue. So I said, you know what, you have enough problems dealing with your son with a heart issue. How about I take over Turner Park? So I've been doing permanent Turner Park since then.
It's beautiful.
So
He kept up really nice.
Very, very nicely kept up. I didn't know, Phil, I didn't know you were behind that.
He was already there this morning.
Really?
I said, you better get home and get changed before you get, see, you're not going there in your work clothes.
I don't see any grass snippings in your hair or anything like that.
well, the nice
But
thing
they're
is,
all over the laundry room floor.
well, the nice thing, a year ago, a couple people came in that wanted to try to revitalize Turner Park. See what they could do to make it nicer and get more people involved in it. So they formed a group called the Friends of Turner Park. So I'm going to put a plug in for volunteerism for Turner Park. Mm-hmm. Over the last year, we've been able to keep the bathrooms open 7 days a week.
That's great.
So we have a volunteer. I have Tuesday and Sundays open and close, and then we make sure that the toilets work. We make sure there's toilet paper. Pick up any little litter, and then so there's 4 or 5 people that do this.
And there are
So we've been able to. We repainted the building. We repainted the bathrooms, or the group as a whole. We put in all new light fixtures. We put all new. None of the stalls locked. So we have all new mechanisms now to keep it nice and locked. We actually have seat covers, so you could, if you need that, you can have seat covers. So they've done a really nice job of making the park, more presentable.
Because there are activities there,
Yeah,
regular activity. I know.
Well, last Saturday they had an Easter egg hunt. I think I can't think of it. Was the Walk for Life group is going to be in?
For like this Saturday.
It's going to be this Saturday in the park. So we're starting to get groups to come in. to start using the park. And we've got a lot of positive response from families that have been coming, knowing that the biggest thing is the bathrooms were open. So, because if the child has to go to the bathroom and they have to leave, then they never come back. So by keeping the bathrooms open, we keep the families there a little longer. So it's been really very nice.
And there's equipment for the children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
playground.
they've always had that. They've always had,
Gazebo.
they've had a playground for the small kids.
Mhm.
They have three different playground areas. And then we have one for the big swings for the adult level type of things.
And nice picnic benches for
There's
family.
multiple areas for picnics. You can rent the park. I think it's like $200, but you can reserve that one section that has 3 or 4 picnic tables. So it probably hold about 40 or 50 people.
That's great.
So you can rent the park, to do that.
You were talking at one time about the homeless situation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share?
Well, when I started in 2012, there were 17 homeless in the park. And there were a few that needed to really be in a facility, but unfortunately, California closed all those down. Over the time, we're down to, I think we only have like 3 or 4 that are left. And they're in and out of the parks. And fortunately, they've not really created a problem. So it's just the fact that when families used to come in, they would migrate to the back of the park.
Mm-hmm.
So the back of the park has a basketball court, half court. They have a skate thing, a ramp, so you can go from one end and then up to another ramp. So they've done some improvements to that, put some additional things. The kids say, well, it would be nice if we had this, it would be nice if we had, so they've added those things to it.
Oh, that's nice.
So they made improvements so the kids have a place to do their skateboarding and stuff.
July 4th, I think it's used. The community band usually plays.
We used to have summer concerts. I don't know if they could get that
Yeah.
back in. But,
Nice.
so the group has done, the Friends of Turner Park have done a really nice job, helping the park. So if you're interested in volunteering,
Yeah, very good.
see me on Tuesday.
And by the way, it's located down below Treats. It's on Treat Avenue.
Yeah, it's below Treats and actually below Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo, Covenant Church, Turner Park.
And speaking of Covenant Church, that was one of the things like Phil had said, we go to St. Andrew's Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church, the women's group from St. Andrew's provides desserts every Wednesday night at the Covenant Church. So, we're all God's people.
Yeah.
And we're all one community. So the women's group, there's 2 people every week that provide dessert. And I started, even when we didn't live here permanently, I'm only on the calendar once a month with another gal, Kathy. And so I would come up when it was my turn. And those were the days we could make cookies, cupcakes, brownies, whatever in our kitchen. You can't do that now
Ah, why is that?
because of the laws about, I guess, health issues.
So
We have
use the church kitchen, or what do you use?
No, well, if we wanted to bake, but then they're cooking, so they aren't going to want us baking. So everything we purchase has to be individually wrapped. And that's kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
The little Rice Krispie treats are a good one. Anything that's packaged, then, but we buy enough. And now we probably need over 100 on a weekly basis, probably 125 to 150
People.
desserts for
Desserts for people. So
Mhm.
how many people come every week to those
At least
free
that-
dinners?
at least that many.
Wow.
It's not only homeless, it's low income, it's seniors. The seniors
The meal
come.
is there for anyone who wants to come for the meal.
Right.
No questions asked.
But the seniors come for the camaraderie. They come for people. They're home alone all week long. This is their big outing.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
don't think of it that way.
Right.
Yeah,
The
and the other,
church is
the other
community.
thing Covenant
This-
Church has is they have a huge clothes closet. So if you need clothes, then it's the same thing, no questions asked. You can wander through the place, pick the clothes you want, and then take them free.
And they take donations, right?
Mhm.
So if people are interested in donating clothes, take it to the Covenant Church.
And
Yeah, so if you're interested in donating clothes to the clothes closet, contact Covenant Church because they do it on an appointment basis. Because they don't want people just leaving all the clothes sitting on the property. So you can make an appointment and, you know, when someone unfortunately passes away, you have a lot of clothes that you need to get rid of. So they'll take
in
all.
fact, I've even brought clothes up here from our friends in Dublin after they, husband or wife has passed away. Then I bring them up here. But, and then I'm involved at a prayer group. There's about 10 of us from St. Andrews, and we get together once a month and just share faith. We call it faith sharing group, and we share our faith and prayers for people that need prayers. And so I keep busy, and I'm in the writing class.
You're in the Voices of Wisdom, and you're leading one today.
Yeah, I am.
And what's the topic?
Fictional characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting group. We've become a community
Right.
as well, a writing community of seniors who are writing their stories and learning about writing.
Mm-hmm.
Some new ways, new techniques that maybe they haven't tried before to open up those stories.
Right. Right. So you'll get a surprise today when I do my presentation. So,
Okay.
anyway,
And Phil staying? Are you staying for the presentation?
no, he's going to go back.
You're going back to the
I have to
park.
go back and finish.
Today's your day.
The other half,
Today is Tuesdays and
we're now out of leaf season, we're now into weed whacking season. And we left a lot of the areas of the park alone only because we knew that the Easter egg hunt was gonna go on. So we didn't know where it was gonna happen. I had the same thing at St. Andrew's Church.
You have to keep the grass high
Yeah.
to hide the
Well,
eggs.
I think so,
Yeah.
and you don't know how much rain you're gonna get, so. I haven't touched, there's some parts of the park I haven't been touching, and parts of our church that haven't been done. Unfortunately, we had rain and then 2 days of sunshine, you have 1.5 foot of weeds. Some of the weeds were tall enough you could probably hide the kids, let alone the pigs. So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, now we have to get back into business and get
get
this
it
stuff done.
cleared up.
So weed whacking volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
See
Well-
Phil today.
Well, what happened is we used to take our pastor after Mokill, after Mass, we would go out to lunch. We always would take our pastor with us, and one of the couples would pay for it. And there's like 8 or 10 of us at the table, and this is back in probably 14. And the pastor says, "My house needs to be painted." And everyone at the table looked at me, and I went, "Oh my goodness, I can't hide. I do commercial painting." So originally, we were just going to church. So I was taking care of his house, which is on Sunset above the church. He can walk to work. Well, I noticed that the leaves were pretty bad, so I had the blower with me. So when I started blowing the leaves, I heard this voice: "You want a job?" So since 15, I've been taking care of the grounds in St. Andrew's Church. And then it's like our gardener at Mokill quit, so now I get to do the Mokill as well. So fortunately, off and on, I've had some people help me, but it's just keeps me busy, keeps me out of driving her crazy, and keeps me healthy and all the parts moving.
This is true.
So it's one of those things. It's kind of like you start with the Italian family where everyone works together. If you needed something done, you just got on the phone and make a phone call, and you knew how many family members you would have. Then, as we grew up, there was a group of about 15 of us that grew up together within about 2-block range. As we got into our 20s and 30s, if you had a project, we could supply almost 20 people. So we had a guy who was going to pour a 9-yard slab. He's going to pull a full addition on his home, a 9-yard slab. We had 25 people there.
Hmm.
And we had 5 guys on wheelbarrows. I mean, so the poor guy on the truck couldn't even drink his beer because he's getting busy. The only rule you had was at the end of the day, no drinking until the end of the day. You had to supply us a lunch meat luncheon with hard rolls and then all the beer we could drink.
Okay.
And then you got all the help you needed. So that, we kind of just grew from that into our adult, in our later years. So it's just same thing with our community here. If you need help, you don't even have to go very far to get, people to help you.
That's
It's so you found it's like being in heaven up here.
mm-hmm.
Everyone's nice and calm. Everyone works together.
Yeah.
So it works out very well.
I think earlier you were talking about an attachment you formed with one of the homeless in the park.
Oh, well, several people. One was a mother with a little girl. I won't mention names, but the little girl was about 9 years old when I first. She talked with Phil at the park.
Well, I had met the mother and daughter in the park. What I did was the park, unfortunately at that time, the bathrooms were locked because of problems. So anytime I was in the park and someone needed the bathroom, I would open the bathrooms. So I opened the bathrooms for them, and then that's where we got connected. And then eventually, I got Chris. I said, I'd like you to meet this mother and daughter. I think you're more in tune to them than I am. So then I introduced Chris to them.
And so, probably for over 2 years, I knew in my heart that I would want to be a friend to them and to show them God's love and my love. But I knew that I couldn't bring them into our home. And at that time, too, I was having a lot of heart issues and surgery and so forth. And of course, COVID and all of that. And so, but I found them places to live. One time they lived in a trailer on property of one of our church people. It was a trailer that they had on their property. And so I went over and we put curtains up and made it homey. And then I could bring meals to them there. And actually one Christmas Eve, and it was during the COVID time, so that we couldn't be my birthday's Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. And so we couldn't be down in the Bay Area with our own family, but I did bring the mother and the daughter to our home on Christmas Eve day, and we had a nice dinner together, and they could, feel the Christmas spirit. And, but it was on Mother's Day, about 3 years ago, I got a phone call, and it was from the mother, and she said, "Don't look for me, just pray for me." Mm. And she left her little girl here in San Andreas and went. God only knows, I've never heard from her. Oh. But the little girl has been taken care of by a family here in San Andreas. Mm-hmm. And that kind of broke my heart. So I haven't got that attached. And then there was one young man that Phil knew, that he had a dog, and the animals become their children, and they are so attached to them that unfortunately the dog, did he bite somebody or something? He got taken away by the police anyway, and he was put into a shelter, and I guess for observation for rabies or what. And this particular man was so distraught that he committed suicide because he lost his dog. Mm-hmm. So
it's heart-wrenching experience.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. And mm-hmm. I said to the Lord, I want to do your work, but I can't. I get too attached. And so that was my two big experiences with homeless. So feeding on Wednesday night is a lot easier.
Yeah. And you do,
And I know they're eating some good.
that's right, and you're taking care of them still.
Right. Still helping, but not not with my emotions. Yeah.
Do your kids come up here and your grandkids, do they visit you quite often?
In fact, they come, well, when the grandkids were young, teenagers and stuff, we would come every summer. When they were out of school, we'd come for a couple of weeks. And then I have three, and the three grandkids and myself, we explore all over. But now they're in their 30s. One granddaughter just had a baby. We were great grandparents. She had a baby on January the 27th, actually our son, the grandfather's birthday. So, but our grandson, Philip, another Philip, he and his wife and stepdaughter, they live in Spokane Valley. But they were here visiting. They came to see the baby. but he called, Grandma, we need to see you too. So they came up. That's on a Wednesday, 2 weeks ago. And
they'll stay at your home, or do they find places to stay?
no, we have enough room, but they didn't spend the night. They just came up and we had lunch, played cards, because Andrea hadn't seen the house, our house, since they got married. Emma has a granddaughter. She's my bonus great granddaughter. She came with the marriage, but she's my bonus. But anyway, we're going to go see them in May in Spokane. Yes, we're very close with our children and our grandchildren.
Because what we do is we Zoom every other Tuesday.
Yeah, family
We
Zoom.
Actually, it's Zoom. We have a cousin in Maryland. We have people in San Francisco. We're in San Andreas. We have Pleasanton. We have Dublin. We have San Ramon. Now I have a nephew that's living in Kentucky, so he's in. So we spend about an hour, but we chit chat and kind of keep up with stuff or support each other. One of my cousin's daughter in San Francisco was going through breast cancer, so we could work a little support group. Chris had been through breast cancer twice, so we had someone that she could talk to that understood what was going on, and anytime she needed some help or something, then someone in the family would help take care of it. So just
a good network. Any of them living closer?
No,
The closest ones?
Dublin.
Dublin's the closest.
yeah.
Dublin.
None of them have decided to come up here and settle?
No.
No?
No. Our son was a Alameda County deputy sheriff and is retired from that. And I keep saying, "Oh, you can come up here and be a sheriff."
That's right. Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm done," and I'm grateful.
Well, the other thing is he's also helping take care of his in-laws. So and now he's going to be the babysitter for his granddaughter.
Yeah.
Because when he retired, he became a funeral director for Graham Hitch in Pleasanton.
Oh.
And they like ex-policemen to do that because they can handle problems when things get a little crazy at funerals.
Yeah.
They can come in and tone it down a little bit.
That's interesting.
So all of a sudden, last year or so, he says, "I think I'm going to retire." So what are you going to do? Well, he knew that his daughter was going to plan on having a child. We didn't know that, but he did. So what they did was Alicia and Jake found a way to each parent or grandparent was told in a different manner. So our thing was Rob had a dinner, and so we came down to the Bay Area for the dinner, and our Jake and Alicia came in, and the first time I ever seen Alicia in a dress. It was very loose fitting. So I just kept looking at her going, God, if I didn't know better.
Yeah.
I think she was pregnant. So we had our dinner, and then we play a card game. It's one card game. It's one card. Everyone gets one card, and the one who has the lowest one loses the money. So Rob's sitting here. I'm sitting here. Jake's here. Alicia's here, and then the rest of the group is there. Rob hands the deck over to Alicia. Like, well, that's weird. So she deals out the cards, and then when everyone says what they have, Alicia goes, "Oh, I guess I have to pay. I have the ace," and she swung the ace over to where Chris was sitting. But the card had Baby Martin, 2025, January 2.
Isn't
That's
that?
how she introduced us to the fact that she was pregnant with our great grandchild.
To make an announcement.
So each one was done in a different manner.
Mhm.
The others,
Very creative.
the others had a grandparents. My daughter-in-law's mom and dad. They were home, and Alicia, Jake and Alicia went over, and Alicia put a package of buns in the oven.
Oh, the buns are in the oven.
And
There's a bun in the oven.
Barbara said, "Why are you putting buns in the oven?" Because I have one.
That's so great.
Yeah. So anyway, it was really cute. But
But yeah, I mean, maybe someday some of them will settle. It's nice to see young people come up here.
right. And my dream is financially we can leave it as a getaway home.
Uh-huh.
When we're at little time for us. I don't know that we don't, won't be able to hang on to it, but hopefully then they can use it as a second getaway home.
But you got another 20-something years up here. We
Well,
won't,
the
we won't
coolness
push
of
it.
it.
Yeah. Well, it's been lovely having you here and talking to you about your family and your
Right.
history all the way back to the 1840s. And this is a wonderful discussion, and I hope we can get together again and invite people to Voices of Wisdom if you'd like to see more of what Chris is doing and the rest of the group. But thank you, everyone, and on to our next interview and adventure, and adventures for you too.
Adventures for us.
Yeah.